Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at the simultaneous deductive word puzzle game Clover. And no disclaimer for this one, I borrowed Peter's copy of the game. I've been really loving cooperative deduction games lately with things like Letter Jam and Paint the Roses. Does Clover rise above the pack? Let's find out and get to the list. So starting off at number 5, this is a full-on con, although not necessarily an important one for your group, and that's the fact that the scoring is kind of meaningless in the game. You get 1 through 6 points based on how many of the cards you guess correctly for each player, a 2-point bonus if you guess them on your first try. And then once everyone's scored, you put your total on the Record of Legends, and that's it. There is no other scoring. They don't tell you what a good or bad score is. They just say, beat your score next time. And it is the laziest version of scoring I've seen for one of these kind of games. Might not be a big deal based on your game group if they're just playing for fun, but it is something to bring up. My number 4 is a mix, and that's the random element in the game. You're going to have, for each player, a random assortment of paired words. And on the positive side, this gives the game almost infinite replayability. You've got so many word cards in the game, and just infinite, basically, possibilities of how they could match with each other. But on the negative side, it can be frustrating, I found, especially for new players, when they get words that just don't have anything to do with each other. Like eye and mouth, it might be easy to just put body or something else because they have an obvious connection. But what do you put for Switzerland and shark? I have no idea, maybe you do, but again, this can be frustrating, especially when you're first getting into the game, and can make the random matchups really take one player down and make them have a hard time with everything. But apart from that potential frustration, my number 3, a full-on pro, is the clue writing itself. I find this reminds me a lot of code names in that you have to creatively look for these one-word clues and really put things that kind of think outside the box, or just put a Hail Mary out there and hope your team can somehow dig through the logic of your brain to find what you were thinking. And the fact that everyone is writing simultaneously, meaning that there's generally almost no downtime unless you have one player that's really struggling, makes this a joy and a really fun, creative part of the game. My number 2 is also a pro, and that's cooperatively guessing where the cards belong on each player's Clover. First of all, I really like the tactile aspect of actually being able to put the cards in the spots and kind of look at them together. Makes it a lot more easy to discuss possibilities than in a lot of games like this. I also think the decision to add a 5th card to throw some confusion in the mix was genius. And again, except for the one person sitting silently and groaning because nobody's figuring out what they meant, this is a simultaneous part of the game. Lots of fun for everyone. The one caveat I'll give is that if you have someone who's like a really strong alpha player and just wants to force their interpretation on everybody else, there's no hidden information at this point to stop that behavior. And finally, my point number 1 is the accessibility, because the game takes like 10 seconds to teach. Look, you got some cards. Write some words that make people think of the 2 words on the card. I've taught it to my 9-year-old. Even my 6-year-old was able to understand the game. He just couldn't read enough of the words to play with us. It really is incredibly simple. I've taught it to large groups of total non-gamers, and they've been able to get it immediately. The components themselves make the game very easy to use. The clovers work perfectly. The pens are fine. They are pens. They erase. It really is one of the quickest and simplest party word games I own, right up there with things like Just One. So overall, I can easily recommend Clover for casual game groups. Even for non-game groups, it can kind of work as a party game. The only groups I might not recommend it for are ones that have vicious alpha player problems, or ones that have players who get angry or frustrated easily when the clues don't go their way. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.